Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I really do deeply appreciate it. Now, what I did before this video was do a part 1 on Proposition 63. This is part 2. In part 1, I covered certain aspects of the law, and obviously this law applies only to California, but truthfully, no matter where you are in the country, you should be aware of the fact that sometimes these laws start in places like California and then work their way across the country. So even if you're in a very free state, it might be a good idea for you to know about these things so that, 1, you can be glad you're not here. 2, you can support guys like me and the gun owners here. There's a lot of men and women here who are gun owners, and they need to be encouraged to be part of the process and to do so in such a way that it helps us secure our firearms rights. There actually are about 8 to 10 million firearms owners in the state of California. The problem is that most of them are not very engaged, and they need to be. The other thing is that sometimes these referendum type deals, like Proposition 63 was, sneak up on people and they don't really realize what's in it when they vote for it. And so there's the other aspect of that problem. In any case, in the first video, I went over certain aspects of the law. So if you have not seen that one, you can go down to the links and description on this video. I put a link in there to part 1 so you can find it. But in part 1, in case you're interested, I went over, I went through the lost or stolen firearms section of the law and explained that. I also went through the large capacity magazine part of the law. And I went over ammunition, at least the beginning of it, which I'm going to recap here for you a little bit. And we'll start off with ammunition. And then there's some other aspects of the law that I find, well, frankly, I find it all pretty alarming. But there's aspects of this law that are very alarming. Now, I know we're sitting in my office at the moment because it's raining outside. And I thought it would be a little easier to do this, particularly with paper in my hand and the camera and everything else. Instead of doing it in the rain, we'd sit in the office and do it here. So forgive me for not having a tree behind me or some other, or the range or gun sounds or whatever. Perhaps we can add those sound effects for you if you really want them. All right, anyway, ammunition. This is Proposition 63 in the state of California. Now, in case you don't know the history, we had a series of laws everybody was calling Gunmageddon that were passed earlier in the year and signed into law by our governor, Jerry Brown. Everybody calls him Moonbeam for a reason, because he was Moonbeam when he was the governor the first time, and nothing's changed. That dude is out there. But in any case, he did sign those into law, and then this was a referendum. This was a state referendum that got enough signatures to be on the ballot, and for whatever idiotic reason, people who live in the state actually voted for it. So let's go over ammunition. First of all, if you're worried about the components for reloading, it doesn't cover those at all. Ammunition as it's defined in the law, and I think if I hold it out here I can see it without putting my glasses on and off over and over again, but ammunition as it's defined in the law is defined as the completed cartridge. So that would be all the components of the cartridge completed into one piece of ammunition. That's ammunition as this law defines it, and so it does not address things like reloading components. Now, if you think that the California legislature, when they figure out that reloading components weren't added, are going to do something about that, you're probably wrong. I suspect it'll come up later on. But right now, as for the time of this video and the current law, if you want to order ammunition components and have them shipped to you, or you want to buy them and reload them and do whatever you want to do, I reload myself, then you're free to do that. They're not restricted or covered by these laws, either the ones in Gunmageddon, SB 1235, that covered ammunition, or this part of Proposition 63, which was very broad in what it did. So it defined ammunition as the completed cartridge. Reloading components are not part and parcel of that. You don't need to worry about that. Now, the other thing it did do, which I talked about briefly in the previous video, is it created a straw purchase for ammunition. Now, you're aware of the fact that if you buy a gun and you provide it to a prohibited person, somebody who's a felon or somebody who's, for some legal reason, cannot own firearms, and you do that knowingly, that's called a straw purchase, and that's against federal law. Well, it's also against against state law in California, and now they've added ammunition to that. So since they're restricting ammunition like crazy in the state, if you go out and buy ammunition and you provide it to somebody that you know is prohibited from owning a firearm, in the state of California, they're also prohibited from owning or possessing ammunition. And if you do that, that is now a crime. It was not a crime before Proposition 63, but now it is. So it's just like a firearm straw purchase. It's just ammunition. And if you have problems with any of these laws, trust me, I get it. because I find them, every last one of them, to be violations of my Second Amendment rights and yours. But we need to know what they are if we choose to comply with them. Some people will. I got to tell you, I think a lot of people won't. But it's also important to know what the dangers are if you don't, from the standpoint of what comes to pass from a penalty perspective. All right, here's the requirements. As of January 1, 2018, I am going to have to put my glasses on. So that happens when you get to be old. As of January 1, 2018, ammunition sales must be processed through a licensed ammunition vendor. Now, you might think that that would be the same as a federal firearms licensee, but it isn't. A person can have an FFL and not be an ammunition vendor. It's a separate license that you have to get. Private party transfers will also have to go through a licensed ammunition vendor, just like in California, private party transfers of firearms have to go through a firearms dealer. The vendor can charge a fee for that, so it's just the same as if you sold your gun in California and you sold it to your buddy. You're supposed to go, I say supposed to go, through a dealer. I would be a liar if I didn't say that I'm sure an awful lot of transactions in the state of California do not go through dealers because, honestly, law-abiding citizens, most of them probably don't even know they're supposed to do that. So they sell it to their buddy while they're hunting or whatever, and it moves around that way. There's a lot of guns in the state of California that are not registered precisely because of that, and because people move into the state and they don't know they're supposed to tell the state of California that they moved in and they brought guns with them. So the guns get here and nobody knows. And it's, in large part, it's just innocent folks who aren't aware of the details of these idiotic laws, and so they end up breaking them. But there you are. All right, ammo purchases that are online or anytime ammo is shipped to you, that also is supposed to go through a dealer. It cannot be shipped directly to you as of the date that this law comes into effect. Instead, it would have to be shipped to a licensed California ammo vendor, and then that vendor can charge you a fee for transferring it to you and doing the background check and all that kind of nonsense. So it's the same as buying a firearm in the state of California once this goes into effect. You are not supposed to sell more than 500 rounds per month of ammunition without having a vendor's license. And truthfully, as far as I can determine, you're not supposed to sell ammunition at all in the state of California once this thing comes into effect. Now, there are some exemptions. I'm going to put those up on the screen for you, and they're the usual suspects: law enforcement agencies, sworn law enforcement officers, federally licensed firearms dealers and ammunition importers and manufacturers and the like, persons on the centralized list of FFLs that are exempt. I guess some of them are, some of them aren't. And certainly curio and relic collectors, CNR collectors, with a certificate of eligibility. Well, that seems to me to be the easiest way to get around this, is apply for a CNR and get your certificate of eligibility. Then you don't have to go through all this nonsense. I may do that because I need sponsors to be able to send me ammunition and not have to go through all this nonsense. Ammunition vendors, consultants / evaluators. What the heck are those? Well, that's a guy like me. I evaluate products on YouTube, and I write a column about them and articles about them and so on, and do reviews, and so people can send me ammunition or sell me ammunition, and I don't have to go through all this nonsense all the time. If the ammunition is going to be used for that, just so that you know, it's got to be used for that particular purpose. Target facilities and ranges, provided the ammo is used at the time on the range. So if you go to the range and you buy ammunition and you're going to shoot it up at the range, you won't need to go through this. Persons who purchase ammunition from their spouse or domestic partner or immediate family member, a child, someone like that. Now, there was an exemption for hunting clubs in the previous law, 1235, but now that's been stripped out. So if you have a hunting club or nonprofit or any of those kind of things, then guess what? You're not exempt anymore where that's concerned. So that got us caught up with the ammo section as far as I got it in part 1 of this video series. And if you'd like to see part 1 and haven't already, remember the link is in the description. But to carry on with the stuff I didn't get a chance to talk about before, from the day that this comes into effect, vendors are no longer going to be able to leave ammo out where you can pick it up and look at it. It's going to have to be locked in a cabinet or behind the counter, somewhere where it's inaccessible to purchasers without vendor assistance, which is a nuisance because you can't pick up the ammo you'd like to look at and make a choice and just carry it over to the counter and buy it. Now you have to wait for somebody in the store to help you, which takes more time, it's more problematic, and so on. You've got to kind of stare at it at a distance and say, well, I think I'd like that box. What is that box? And that's a real pain. And then think about it from a vendor perspective. They have to buy new cabinetry. They have to redesign their stores and shift around their floor space. It's a tremendous investment in time and money and aggravation to accomplish absolutely nothing. But that nevertheless is the law that will be going forward. Now, as far as the process is concerned, SB 1235, which was the previous law from Gunmageddon, and Proposition 63 are a little different. SB 1235 envisioned a computer system that doesn't exist yet, so when you wanted to do your background check or purchase your ammo, it was all supposed to be computerized, right? But that program hasn't been created, hasn't even been thought of, there isn't even a pencil mark on a piece of paper yet in the design process of this supposed computer system that they're going to use. They'd have to develop it from scratch. Think Obamacare. Probably won't work the first time. You know, it's the government designing something, and it's the California government, which makes it worse. They don't do anything right. Proposition 63 says, we don't need that. We need a paper form, which doesn't exist yet. And then you fill out the paper form, the vendor does, and they write all this stuff down, and then they send that to the state, and the state then inputs that into a computer system. And that computer system hasn't been designed yet. The form hasn't been designed yet, and they haven't decided who's going to do the entering into the computer system yet. Think DMV or Obamacare. I mean, this is a bureaucratic monster you're going to be wanting to buy your ammo. You're going to stand at the counter, and you're not going to be able to buy your ammo because they're waiting for your computer check, which supposedly is supposed to be like that for your background check, but you know it's not going to happen that way, and you're going to have, well, can you come back in an hour? Can you come back tomorrow? Can you come back next Thursday? What am I, wimpy? I'd gladly buy it, I'd pay you Thursday for a hamburger today or whatever it is. All right, anyway, the detail that you got to collect is about the same. It's not that much different as far as the information they're going to collect. I'm going to go over that in a minute, but there are some differences, one of which is that under Proposition 63, the Department of Justice can keep this information forever. There is no restriction on how long they keep it. Under SB 1235, the previous law, they were only allowed to keep it for 2 years. Also, under Proposition 63, they can share it with people as long as they get your permission. Now, under the previous law, they couldn't share that information with anybody other than law enforcement, and only if it pertained to an active investigation at the time. Now, they can use it for their own purposes or share it with third parties or whatever, as long as they get their permission from you. Okay, so what prevents the lender, who's a little unscrupulous maybe, from putting in an additional form I got to fill out to buy my ammunition? I feel like I'm buying a house or a car or something, buying a box of ammunition. Well, what's one more form? And I sign it, and it now gives them permission to do whatever they want with my personal information. I'm not saying vendors are going to race out and do that, but I wouldn't put it past some, and they might. And now you're getting getting a junk mail and people calling you, and good grief, we deal with that enough as it is. All right, let me put up on the screen what they're going to collect from you. Date of transfer, driver's license or state ID number, brand of ammunition, type of ammunition, amount of ammunition sold or transferred, purchaser's full name and signature, name of the salesperson, I don't understand that, purchaser's full residential address and phone number, and the purchaser's date of birth. Now let me just pause here for a second to state this. If you are confused by all of this, I don't blame you. I am too. I'm of the opinion that these laws are designed to be confusing for the sole purpose of snaring you into some violation, even though you're an honest, law-abiding citizen. There is no way on God's green earth that unless you're an attorney that you can understand all of this. And I've listened to the webinars put on by the attorneys from the California Rifle and Pistol Association and National Rifle Association, and they say that these are horribly confusing and very difficult to follow. So one, I don't know how a citizen can actually abide by all of these without inadvertently breaking one of them. The other is I don't know how a vendor can abide by all of these without inadvertently violating something. And I don't know how, it's insane. I don't care what you do, you're going to break one of these laws. So having said all of that, every time I do one of these videos, I get a whole slew of emails and Facebook notes and so on, and comments asking me for legal advice regarding all of this. I just want to tell you, I am just as confused by this as you are. I attended the webinars, which I encourage you to do, and I do have the links to them from the California Rifle and Pistol Association in the description. So please do on your own and see if you can glean some of this stuff, particularly in the area that you're most interested. However, I have to tell you, I'm completely confused by a lot of this, and I'm waiting to find out how the Department of Justice in California is going to actually interpret this or apply it, and so are attorneys. They don't know either. So if you're confused, I get it. I think the thing to realize is that it is designed to be confusing, and it's going to take some time for gun organizations to flesh out what we can do and what we can't do in this state if we're going to try to avoid getting arrested or fined or whatever.